This is Work University Career Talk, episode 44. This is Work University, and I'm Annalisa Felix. This is where I interview people from various employment backgrounds and get the inside scoop on what their job is really like. If you're just getting into the workforce, or if you're curious about getting into something new, listen up. Hello. Today I am conducting an informational interview with Laura Arroyo today, and Laura is a program coordinator over the Academic Commons at GW, also known as George Washington University, and that's a mouthful. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Let's get right into it. So, as a program coordinator, especially at a university, what is it that you do?
So I specifically am the program coordinator over what they call at GW, the Academic Commons. And what the Academic Commons is we consider that a one-stop shop for students to be able to visit to find all the academic resources they need on campus. I specifically am over monitoring and coordinating their tutoring programs on campus, as well as some of their academic program initiatives, like some of their academic workshops and things like that.
That covers a lot. If you really think about it, there's a lot underneath that umbrella. So it sounds like your day can be different every day. What are some of the main pillars that you need to focus on and get things done as far as the students go? We'll get to administrative later.
Yeah, absolutely. So a big part of my job is working with my student tutors. I think I see them probably the most. Always running back and forth from my office to our tutoring center to make sure that they're okay. And I actually been on vacation, quote unquote, the past few days from the university, but I've been getting text messages from them the entire time asking, Miss A, I need help with that. Miss A, I need help with this. So it's a lot of just face-to-face communication with the student tutors to make sure that they're doing okay. I also do a lot of training with them. I try to make them, all the training that I do with them, I try to give them holistic training. So I don't just want to teach them how to tutor someone, but I also want to make sure that they're ready for the quote unquote real world when they leave me. So I try to give them a lot of training with working with diverse populations of people and how to be able to approach certain situations, career development, all of that. So I'm always making sure that I'm talking to them, asking them what they need, and then trying to apply that to the job that I do every day.
I'm sure there's a lot of behind the scenes administrative things that maybe aren't so fun or, tell me about that as well, because looking and talking with people at the university level, it seems like a lot of fun. And it seems like, hey, I'm just hanging out with the students, but I'm sure there's more to it. Tell me more.
Yeah, it could be a really daunting job. I've heard from a lot of people who just work in the university setting that there's never enough hands. And that's one thing that specifically at my institution, there's just not enough people to help out with everything. When I first started out at George Washington University, I actually started off with, it was just me and we had a director at the time, and then the director chose to leave a month into me being there, and we were also starting the tutoring programs from scratch, from the bottom up. So then my team of two went to just me and I had to build a tutoring program from the ground up in a year, and that wasn't the reason why I was originally there. And so I think that experience is not unique in a university setting. I've definitely heard from other people that they've had that kind of similar situation. So for a long time, it really felt like I was just one person trying to man the whole entire ship. You're doing budget work, you're working with students face to face, you're creating training initiatives. You also have to make sure that the programs that you're developing are, beneficial for the university and beneficial for, the what we call the higher ups or the senior leadership team at my university, to make sure that they're happy. And so there's a lot of different balls you have to juggle there. So I think the administrative side can be sometimes really daunting, but also the job is really enjoyable, and seeing the fruit of your labor after you thought that you couldn't juggle all of those things and you realize that you could. That's just an overwhelmingly good feeling to get to the other side. So
Yeah, and that brings up a point of people getting into the workforce, especially students, thinking, oh, well, I don't know how to do that, or I don't know how to do this. And it's kind of go as you go, make it up as you go along, or, you draw, there's no black and white. It's kind of, I try and, when I talk to students, let them know that half the time employers don't even know who they want until they see it, and you just have to give them you. And if they like it and think you fit,
yeah.
great. And if not, thanks for coming. But, that story you said about you just had to make it as you go. And now it sounds like it's a great program. I know there's a lot of STEM involved, and maybe you could tell me about that and how that got incorporated into your title as well. But, you did tell me a little bit about how you got there, but that's interesting too. And what also I want to ask you is, you said the higher ups and meetings
Mhm.
and maybe approvals and administrative work. What kind of communication do you have with leadership, and what does that even mean?
Mm. I think the conversations that I've had with leadership are forever evolving. When I first started, and we kind of had that shift in leadership where I didn't have a director, it was just me. I had a lot more face to face with the senior leadership team, and I worked along with them to be able to create the initiatives, which was really awesome. And then we got to the point where we actually brought in a director. And so I went from talking to the senior leadership team all the time to never seeing them. So it's been like maybe a year and a half of me actually not working with the senior leadership team. So that was really challenging to have to, take a step back and not have as much autonomy to do things. You had to trust another person that they were going to deliver the message that it needed to be delivered. So I think that has been in and of itself challenging, but I also make sure that whatever it is that I need to get done, I'm able to get done to the best of my abilities with the, I guess, limitations that I have, like whatever it is that senior leadership might want, or whatever it is that the university needs to do, they're going to do, of course, because, it's a business at the end of the day. But what I can control is what I give to my tutors, making sure that they feel comfortable and safe as much as possible, making sure that I'm able to make sure that they are well-rounded individuals and that they feel that their experience working with me as a supervisor, as well as working at the academic commons as a whole, is a good one. A lot of times this is students' first jobs, and I want to make sure that they have a good experience with their first job, because many of us didn't have a good experience with their first jobs. I know mine was a difficult time having, dealing with supervisors for the first time and learning and fumbling through everything. So I try to make sure that they are my focus and that I'm giving them 100% of myself.
Before I switch gears, I'm glad that you brought up that education and where you are at the end of the day is a business. And there's
Mhm.
something called the bottom line. Tell us a little bit more that maybe students wouldn't realize that may need to factor in the back of their minds, going into even the most fun of positions about that business aspect.
Yeah. So I think the thing I run into the most with trying to let them understand that things are a business is probably there's three things. So one, when I first hire them and they have to do training and things like that, they kind of think like, oh, can like even though their paperwork's not done and everything, they think, oh, I can just jump in and start training, or why do I have to wait a couple of weeks before I can start my job, or why is there all these steps? And they get really frustrated because they want a paycheck yesterday, and I can't give them that because a university works different than sometimes a regular job. And sometimes regular jobs can be like that too, where you have to go through a process to get hired. They have to do background checks. They have to make sure that you're the person that you actually said that you were. You know, if you're international, there's other steps you have to go through. It's going to be a process, and teaching them that responsibility, and then also making sure that they keep up with that process, because a lot of times they don't, and that also stalls them from being able to work, is a process in and of itself, because that is part of the business, right? And then two, when they ask me for extra hours, or maybe they want to change things around or whatever, and I have to let them know, like, I'm working on a budget. So I'm budgeting you for however many hours you can work this week, and I need you to stay within that, is also really hard for them to really contemplate and understand. And then third, that I am just one human, and I'm not like their parent or anything. So I can't pick up the phone for you at 2 a.m. or make sure you're good. For example, this past weekend, a lot of them were working. I'm off on the weekends, and I got text messages. Oh, Miss A, I messed up my schedule. The building doesn't open till 12. I put my schedule at 9. What do I do? And I couldn't help them with those things, and they were very upset about it. You know, just letting them know that, you know, I have my own time restraints. The university, like, you know, has me working 40 hours. After 40 hours, I can't, you know, I can't do more things for you. So just like teaching them those things, and the little behind the scene things they don't realize are there. And I like that though, because I hope that I'm teaching them patience when they're working with other people moving forward outside of this, because there's going to be so many things that's going to be behind the scenes, whether it's they're working with their own director or they're just working with a coworker. Things happen at home, things happen in people's personal spaces that you're not accounting for when you're having an interaction with someone. And that can totally change the narrative of everything that's happening within that 5 minutes of talking with someone.
Mhm.
So being aware that there's other things happening and it's not just all about you, uh, is an interesting aspect to be teaching these students daily.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about your path to getting there. When you were starting out in school, I'm sure you probably didn't see yourself where you are right now, or maybe you did. Tell me about that.
You were right the first time. I didn't see myself here at all. And I'll try to condense this story a little bit. But I started off in my undergraduate years wanting to actually go into physical therapy. And I went on that track for about 2 years. And I remember my sophomore year, I believe, I had to take a calculus course. And I tried to power through it the first couple of weeks. And then we had our first exam. And the night before, I was just studying and trying my best. And the next day, I just woke up and I knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So instead of taking the test, I got an add drop form. And I walked in to class and I gave it to my professor in front of everyone. I said, I'm not taking this test. Sign me out of the class. And from that moment on, I realized that I couldn't do the physical therapy track because math wasn't my strong suit. And at the time, I didn't realize that there was other resources available to me that could have helped me through that.
Mhm.
So I tried to use what I had, and I decided to go on a different track. And so I talked to my advisor at the time, and she told me, you know, take a look at what you're good at, what do you actually enjoy doing, and let's see if we can apply that to a track at school that might be beneficial for you. And so I ended up actually going into psychology and sociology instead.
Mhm.
And then I also did a minor in African American studies. And I had the best time of my life. And I learned a lot from it. But at the end, again, because that wasn't my original plan, I didn't know what to do next. So I went
Mhm.
back to my advisor and she asked me what I wanted to do once I graduated, and I just started bawling. And I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. So she asked me the same question, and I told her, I said, I really liked doing all of the fun activities at school and, you know, being presidents of organizations and doing all the stuff. And she said that, oh, well, you can actually make that into a career. You can go to she even told me the college to go to. She told me to go to Springfield College in Springfield, Massachusetts, and to go into student personnel administration, which is just higher education. And she told me I could make a career working at colleges. So that's how I got to the track of working with higher ed. GW was a happy accident. My contract expired at another university, and I didn't know that they weren't going to re-sign the contract for a lot of behind the scene things again,
Mhm.
which is a story for another day. But getting to GW, I just started throwing out applications all over the United States.
Mhm.
And I had a 20-minute conversation with someone at George Washington University. I didn't know who they were. And they called me, they said, yeah, we have this program. And I didn't like fully understand everything, but I just answered the question to the best of my ability. I tried to show my true self and what I was passionate about. And then I didn't hear from them for like 6 weeks and I didn't think anything of it. And then I got a call and they asked me, they said, oh, are you still interested in the position? You get
Wow.
paid this much and we want you to move down in the next month to come start. We want you to move to DC.
Wow.
And again, I remember me and my mother, we were screaming, running around my whole entire house, because that was a dream of mine. Not necessarily work for GW, but to move to DC and to be working in some
Wow.
institution in that way. So that was a happy accident that I've been really blessed to say that I've been able to work and live my dream for the past 3 or 4 years. So
I love it. That's a great story and
yes.
such a testament of why students should really network, talk to administrators, talk to, even their instructors and just kind of say, okay, well, who can I talk to about this? And if you're curious about something, follow it because you just never know. And the stressors may, be, they're not necessary. If you
Mhm.
just start talking to different people and then so many organizations and so many things to get involved with and just people and for introverts I'm sure it's a hard thing, but
Mhm.
for students it's just I have a similar story but I won't get into that, but basically about finally talking to different people and figuring out what do I like rather than being stuck in a degree or a path or a track that maybe there was some contrast internally and things like that. So that's a great story. What advice would you give to students or anyone looking to shift their careers and getting into higher education?
First, I would say don't be afraid to try. I talk to a lot of people who want to go into higher education and they put themselves in a very small box with huge side walls and they say I want to do this and this only and I only want to stay in this state and this city and make $100,000 and do all this stuff. And I'm like, that's not practical. Not if you want to go into higher education. You have to be willing to try and put yourself out there and learn from new experiences. For me, I wanted to do diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. I never saw myself running a tutoring program. That was the farthest thing from my mind. I didn't understand how it would apply to my life at all. And when I tell you I am doing everything that I wanted to do and more within this job, because it ended up allowing me to work with diversity, equity, and inclusion in a different way, where I get to teach these students how to work with diverse populations. I also work with diverse populations because I'm just working at a university naturally. And then the program just happened to be in the library, and they needed help with their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So I also run that as well. And so it was this beautiful thing where I just saw that everything that I wanted and I needed came from this position, but from the outside, it didn't look like what I needed, but it was everything that I needed and what I wanted. And so just because something looks like it's doesn't look like what you want it to look like, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to feed you what you need. You know, it's just like a meal. Sometimes you can look at it and you're looking at this big plate of green or something, and you're like, oh, that doesn't look appealing or appetizing. But when you eat it, you feel fulfilled. Sometimes you end up finding out it actually tastes good and that you liked it. And you end up getting more from it than what you actually expected. So I think when you go into higher education, you have to kind of take down all of those expectations that you had for yourself and just go for it. You know, be willing to move to another state. You know, you might end up meeting the person of your dreams, or maybe you end up getting a raise or something like that, or you get a bigger position than you wanted, or maybe you can come back to the place that you wanted to be originally later on. You know, not everything comes to you right away, and in that time it will come to you when it's time for you to receive it. And so just make sure that you're giving yourself that space to go out and gain everything that the world has to offer you. That's probably my biggest thing, is within life, and then also going into higher education. And also knowing that higher education is very slow. So if you're looking for a job in particular, sometimes you might not hear back from people for 6 months or a year or something like that, because we're just, you know, it's just a slow process.
That's good to know. Yeah.
That's also a really big thing I tell folks. Like, it's just, you got to be ready for the long haul. But again, once you get there, it's worth it. So I would say those two things.
Great. Well, we're coming up on time. I want to be respectful for your time. Thank you for giving me just a glimpse of what it's like to be a program coordinator from your perspective, because everybody's perspective is different. Everybody's got different stories and career paths and things like that. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, Laura. I appreciate it.
You're welcome anytime. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. If there's a job you want to learn about, it may already be in the Work University podcast library. Go to workuniversity.org to check and see. Or send me an email and let me know what jobs you want to learn about. Till next time.